Max Klare's crispy routes will give Julian Sayin the space and windows he needs to thrive.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And during today's show, we will discuss why the Buckeye tight end room is one of the strongest units on the team, as well as if we are transitioning into a new era of Ohio State tight ends. But first, Ohio State's decision to snag Max Klare out of the portal is one of the best moves the team made during the offseason. Klare was one of the best tight ends in the country a year ago, and you're adding that weapon to an offense that already has Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis. And then when you consider Ohio State having a first-time starting quarterback in Julian Sayin, you're trying to figure out how the tight end position is going to make Sayin's job easier. And with Max Klare running crispy routes all over the field, he is going to demand a lot of attention. That's attention that opposing defenses can't give to Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis or even a back out of the backfield, which is going to make Julian Sayin's job a whole lot easier. With Klare demanding more attention and him being a crispy route runner, it's going to open up passing windows and lanes for Sayin to get a clear path and to anticipate throws all over the field, which makes his job easier. And if you're a first-time starting quarterback and in your first game you're going up against the number one team in the country, you want to find every little way you can for your job to be easier. But like I've said before, you can only do so much in practice, at a scrimmage, or in a virtual reality situation that can prep you for playing Texas week 1. The fortunate thing for Sayin is it's a home game. You ain't going down there to Austin. You ain't got to deal with that crowd. That's 80,000 strong down there in Texas. That would be a tough venue to play in. That's a year from now. I also don't believe that's the season opener, which is a whole another can of worms that Ohio State agreed to something that they probably shouldn't have, but they did. But for Sayin this year, think about how fortunate he is to have the best player in the country on his side, to have a quality number 2 receiver that would be a number 1 receiver in other places around the country, to have Brandon Ennis to bring that bulldog-like mentality to the slot position. And you have backs in the backfield that are going to complement the offense very well. One, they complement each other in Peoples and Donaldson, but they also fit into what Ryan Day wants from the offense. Sayin's job is difficult, but it's easier because of the weapons he has around him. The only thing with this that was kind of a wild card for Sayin is not the passing attack or the weapons on the outside or in the backfield. It's the guys up front. Because I have a belief that the offensive line will be fine in the middle of the season. But what will it be against Texas? That is a big, big wild card. And if we were trying to put checks or an X or a question mark next to different positions, I would put a question mark next to Sayin because we don't know. We can speculate or maybe say this is what we expect, but we don't know. I know what you're getting from Klare, from Smith, from Tate, from Ennis. I'm putting a question mark next to the offensive line too, because that unit, while it has guys that are really, really good, and Austin Serveld, who is a 2-time Iron Buckeye this offseason and an Ohio State captain, you know some of the guys that they're going to be good, but sometimes you put new faces in new places, maybe it could be a little bit difficult. And then when you have a guy in the offseason in Phillip Daniels who has found a way to move up the depth chart where he was thought to be the backup at right tackle, it seems like he's going to be the starter at right tackle. That is another wild card for this offense. While there are wild cards for the offense, you got to find a way to allow Sayin to settle in because it's going to be difficult. I mean, if you think back to a year ago when Ohio State traveled to Happy Valley and Will Howard, who had started numerous games strong, most games a year ago, Will Howard was completing his first 8 passes or his first 10 passes of the game, or in that stretch, he may have 1 incompletion or maybe 2. I mean, he was a really solid starter as a quarterback, but then in that Penn State game, he didn't get settled in. I mean, homie's first pass was a pick six. And it took him a little bit longer to settle in. But once he did, everything was fine. Well, for Sayin right now, he can look back to the game against Penn State where Will Howard didn't really settle in very, very quickly and say, what did he do? He leaned into the guys around him. He didn't try and do too much. He stayed within the confines of what Ryan Day and Chip Kelly at the time were throwing at him and asking him to do, and the chips fell where they may. Now, the difference is Texas is better than Penn State. I don't think anybody's going to debate that and say, no, Penn State is better. Based on what? Based on what? Returning talent? Okay. Well, the talent they're returning wasn't better than Texas's talent a year ago, and Texas got better with the talent they currently have. So while you're returning talent and they know the system, are those players being developed to be better? You would hope so. That Drew Allen gets better in year 4, and Nicholas Singleton and Keyshawn Allen are getting better, and that denied Dennis Sutton is going to be really, really good. Like you, the transfer receiver from Syracuse, forget his name right now, Trevor Pena. That's his name, Trevor. I just saw this, Trevor Pena. I thought his name was Trevor the entire time until I saw his name written out in a preview magazine, and I'm thinking, oh, I heard it wrong the entire time he was playing college football. But you would think they're going to be good. But with some guys, sometimes when guys are returning, they're not being developed to be better. Texas is going to be better than they were a year ago. They are hungry, and they're going to try and do everything they can to disrupt Julian Sayin so that he can't get into a rhythm, so that he can't settle in like Will Howard did last year against Penn State. That's their mission. But Ohio State has a way to overcome anything Texas throws at them, at least in the passing attack. Think about if you're saying you guys have played video games before for college football. Maybe you have played the newest game, college football 26, and you realize if you're playing Ohio State, most defenses put a lot of resources on Jeremiah Smith. And let's just say that Texas does that again. Not only does it happen with Jeremiah Smith in a video game, it's also happened in real life because a year ago, Texas put a lot of people, put a lot of time, put a lot of their game plan into slowing down Jeremiah Smith, and they did it. Only had one catch. He said he had a bad game, and so he is eager to get back on the field and to do some things he didn't do last year against the Longhorns. So that's a part of their game plan. So let's just say they start the game putting a lot of resources on number 4. That alone is going to open up things for Max Klare and for his crispy route running to carve up the Longhorns defense. But let's say they don't do that and they try to even things out, still giving 4 eyeballs, two sets of eyeballs focused on Jeremiah Smith at all times. But they try to even things out and realize we can't do what happened last year because Ohio State has a lot of firepower all over the field. In comes the Max Klare effect because Max Klare is going to pull some attention towards himself because of how efficient and elite he is as a player, which is once again going to make Julian Sayin's job easier. We are all about making a game plan that makes Sayin's job easier, and Max Klare's crispy route running does just that. Speaking of Max Klare, his skill set is very unique for an Ohio State player, and makes me wonder if Ohio State is transitioning into a new era of tight ends. This episode is brought to you by Rougiette. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. Thank y'all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Tomorrow is the final Friday show before the Buckeyes' first game week of the year, and I want to hear from you. Go on the YouTube community tab. It's under the Locked On Buckeyes YouTube page, and submit your questions. Submit the questions you have about Ohio State before they enter the first game week of the year, because I want to answer your questions before things really ramp up for us on this show next week. Speaking of ramping things up on this show, I am starting to wonder and even believe that Ohio State's entering a new era of tight end. And it was something that Ryan Day and even Urban Meyer were trying to do, well, about 10 years ago. Think back to Jeremy Ruckert. Jeremy Ruckert was a guy that had a lot of hype around his name, and there was a belief that Jeremy Ruckert could be a really good receiving threat for Ohio State. Unfortunately, he never transitioned to that player, and while he got developed, the development in the passing game wasn't there, and so it was almost, some people were a little disappointed that Jeremy Ruckert was the guy. But then all of a sudden, Cade Stover did a phenomenal job of making himself a highly sought after tight end in the draft. He went to the Texans and is going to have a decent NFL career. Cade Stover was thought to be a guy that was going to be the traditional Ohio State blocking tight end that was utilized sparingly in the offense. No, he was the traditional Ohio State blocking tight end, but he was used as a weapon in Ohio State's passing attack. And I think moving forward, not just with the acquisition of Max Klare from the portal, but with what's on the team right now and Jelani Thurman and Bennett Christian and Nate Roberts and Max LeBlanc and others that are coming in future recruiting classes, I literally believe Ryan Day is trying to transition the norm for Ohio State tight ends to be more of the dual threat or the dual option when it comes to the tight ends that play at Ohio State. There is still going to be a premium on blocking, and the rule has always been that if you cannot block as a tight end, you're not going to play. And some may say it's a little bit crazy, but that's the way Ryan Day runs the offense, which is also the reason why G. Scott Jr. had to wait a little bit to get on the field. Not only was he transitioning to a new position, it took him a while to figure out how to block, which is expected. But I do believe this new era of Ohio State tight end is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and it's going to make any quarterback's job easier. Doesn't matter if it was going to be Keenan Hole starting this year or Stan, who is QB1. Getting a tight end that can split out wide, that can play in the slot, or could be near the sidelines by himself in a one-on-one situation, and you know he could beat the defender off the line of scrimmage. You know he can get on top of the route very, very quickly. You know that he is speedy enough, he can use his frame, and he has soft enough hands to make catches in crazy ways. That's going to make any quarterback's job easier. But I think Ryan Day has always wanted this. I believe Ryan Day saw what used to happen and saw the type of tight ends that were there and said, how can we get better here? And one way you can get better at this position is getting more of a dual option. Now, when I say dual option, I think back to when I was a kid in the young, early days of the recruiting databases and the recruiting sites where dual quarterback, it was a dual quarterback, or the traditional pocket passer. You had your all-around back, or you had your all-purpose back. I think that was one term for it. And they had different ways for one position to be, are you a running type of quarterback, or are you a traditional pocket passer or pro-style quarterback? That's what I was thinking about. Which one are you? And I think Ryan Day realizes, yeah, I can get a guy that's an elite route runner, or I can get a guy that's a bruising type of blocker, or I can get a mix of the two. And I think that's what Ryan Day wants. And I think for Hartline moving forward, if Brian Hartline is the Buckeyes offensive coordinator next year. I know there is already speculation that Hartline's only going to be the OC for 1 year and then go off and get a head coaching job either in college or be the OC in the NFL. There has not been a lot of NFL talk about Hartline recently, but in an interview, I believe it was on the Pivot a long time ago, Hartline said he had dreams and aspirations of being an NFL head coach. I don't blame him. He had a pretty good career in the National Football League, did a lot of good things when he was playing for the Dolphins. If you want to coach at the highest level, why not be open about that and say it and go do it in the NFL? Now, I don't think it's going to happen next year or the year after. I do think that Hartline could work his way up the totem pole to be a head coach in the NFL. But in the meantime, before he gets there, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and kick him out the door when he is still under contract and still has plans to be a great OC for Ohio State. Hartline might want this too. I mean, wouldn't you want a guy that already knows how to work with elite receivers to work with elite tight ends? The one thing that I think is going to be a little bit difficult at times is working with the tight ends to block. Now, you're the OC, not the position coach, so you're not doing the sharing the nerd notes and doing things hands-on with that unit. That's Coach Key's job. That's not Hartline's job. And so that's not Hartline's expertise. But he is still going to have to know how to handle that situation because guys are going to come in and be like, hey, I know how to block in high school. This is different. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger, and they have a counter to everything you throw at them. I'm glad that this is the move that is going to the Buckeyes tight end room. If you think about the tight ends right now, Buckeyes have a couple transfers at the top of the room, and Max Klare and Will Kazmarek. Will Kazmarek is entering his second year at Ohio State. But outside of that, Jelani Thurman isn't normal. Nate Robinson, Max LeBlanc, they're not normal. You look at Ohio State's 26 recruiting class, there are going to be guys in there that are more of your dual option at tight end than the traditional Ohio State tight end, which is mainly a blocker, a wannabe receiving threat. You can still run some screens, and as I say, the screen to think about Stallions just discussing how he knew Ohio State was going to run a screen on that play, even though they hadn't ran that play ever in that season. So, yeah, I don't know why that came into my head, but Stallions is still somehow finding a way to be on this show while being punished. I kind of wish, before we close up shop, that this was not a new transition, that it was something that was already here while Ryan Day was the head coach. Only saying that because it's a lot of fun to watch. I love watching tight ends that are dual options. I could say dual threat, but dual options is a whole lot better because they provide two options, multiple options. One is being a really, really good blocking tight end. One that you struggle to find a way to overcome their force, and the force they play with, and the movement that they have while they're blocking. Also, the receiving threat, that's the new age of college football in general. If you think about all the really, really good teams, they want tight ends like this. It's another wrinkle. It's another weapon that you can utilize that makes a coach's job easier. And of course, it makes a first-time starting quarterback's job easier too. While the tight ends are transitioning at Ohio State, and it's a needed transition, is the tight end room one of the strongest units on the team? We'll discuss that next. This episode is brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this? And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so I never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used Prize Picks for a few seasons now and love how simple it is. I can get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing we know about Ohio State's roster every single year is that it is full of top-end talent. From quarterback to tight end, to O-line to D-line, it does not matter. You pick a position. Ohio State's going to have a lot of talent at that spot. But it's a little bit different when you're looking at the talent at a position and trying to compare it to others on the team and saying, well, is this position the best position group on the team, or is it another one? And this is a fun exercise that I don't normally do in the offseason, but when I believe it was Will Kazmarek was asked about if the tight end room was Will Kazmarek. He was asked if the tight ends are the top position group on the team. His reply was simple, quote, absolutely, end quote. And I'm not mad at him for believing in his guys and believing in his room because he's there every single day. He sees the talent in the room. He sees how the talent has even gotten better by adding Max Klare. And so he should be very confident in the guys he runs with every single day that unit is the best on the team. But is it really the best on the team? I think it's pretty easy when it comes to breaking down in this conversation those that are not and those that are. I'm easily crossing off the quarterback position, the offensive line, and the defensive line. It is not because I don't believe there are talented guys there. It is with the defensive ends and the defensive tackles. I think the defensive tackle depth and experience or lack thereof brings their grade down. I think when it comes to the offensive line, we know they got 6, maybe 5. I don't know if the 6th and Onyanwa is as strong as people thought it was going to be when he transferred in. The depth behind the starting 5 isn't there, and it hasn't been there for quite a long time. So I know Jake Cook and Gabe Ben Sickle and Josh Padilla have had great off seasons, including Ian Moore. And so I think the backups may be a little bit stronger than normal, but I still can't put them and say, oh, this is one of the best on the team. Quarterbacks? No. Talented? Yes. Outside of the 2 passes that he believe will be elite in college football in Julian Sayin and Tavian St. Clair, I think Keen Holtz is a dual threat option, but as a passer, after those 3, Eli Brick Handler, walk-on quarterbacks, you get double because that's just not the thing. So those are easy. Here are the tricky parts. Running back, receiver, tight end, linebacker, and defensive back. I believe all of them have a legitimate argument to be one of the best on the team, but I think running back, I can cross it off because outside of Peoples, Donaldson, and Bo Jackson, what do you have? I'm not trying to be sarcastic or facetious. That's a legit question. What do you have? There's a belief that Isaiah West is going to be good. There's a belief that Turbo Rogers is going to be good. Sam Williams-Dixon, still trying to see him put it all together. So you just truly don't know. There's really only one proven guy in that room, and CJ Donaldson, really only one. So I'm crossing him off. So that what's left is 2 on defense, 2 on offense. Receiver, tight end, linebacker, and defensive back. And I think for this conversation, you're going to call me crazy. Well, Kazmarek would. I'm crossing the tight ends off because I don't I think there's more blocking weapons and receiving threats like a Max Klare. And so I don't think you have all of the all-around guys in that room. And it's a smaller numbered room than defensive back or receiver. There aren't as many tight ends. So you would think, well, the less number, they should be up there. Yes, but no. To me, it's a three-headed race between receiver, linebacker, and defensive back. Part of me wants to give it to the linebackers while they are inexperienced. But when you bring in a Raleigh Pettijohn and a TJ Alford, you already have Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Garrett Stover and Peyton Pierce. It's very hard to go away from that team, that unit. But I think with Sonny being the only proven guy, it's hard to do it. Then it's down to the two positions that go up against each other every day in practice in DB or receiver. I want to give a nod to the defensive backs. Now, granted, these do start 5 over the 3 that Ohio State starts a receiver. But as I'm looking at my paper, thinking about the roster Ohio State has and the plethora of options they have and versatility and weapons to slow down opposing receivers, Devin Sanchez, Aaron Scott Jr., Bryce West, Miles Lockhart, Fahim Delane, Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford, Caleb Downs. I didn't even say Downs first. Just talk about a lot of young guys that are going to be dogs on the field. Lorenzo Styles Jr., David Igbinosun, Dre Matthews Jr. You get the gist. I think most of those guys can either start or be in backup positions this year. In the receiving room, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers. Those are the 4 that you can trust and believe in right now. Outside of that, Quincy Porter is a true freshman. I can't put him up there with the upper echelon. And now in this conversation, Mylan Graham, to me, he's only a wild card because Ohio State has so many dogs at the top. I think if this were a different year and a different era of Ohio State football, he would be a really good second-year guy. But right now, I think he's more of a special teams player. And also hasn't proven himself just yet, which is why Ryan Day, when he was talking about the different positions and the number of players at each position that they feel comfortable playing, Ryan Day didn't give a number. He said they were comfortable playing 4 or 5 tight ends. He didn't give a number for receiver. Because I think he's trying to figure out how deep are we? Are we 4 deep, 5 deep, 6 deep? That's still a legit question. To me, it's defensive backs. And it's not even like, is it close? Yes. But they have separated themselves so much with their high school recruiting that makes it so easy in conversations like this to put them up there. But while you're putting them up there, I think the one knock right now is that Buckeyes offensive line recruiting is still an issue. And that can change. That could change very, very soon. It also needs to change. Because Ohio State just saw Michigan get Savion Hyder, 5-star running back, to commit to them recently. And while they did that, there are reports that he is going to get a compensation. Now, I don't want to say NIL deal or NIL package because it could be rev share that he is getting, but he's going to be getting between $600,000 to $800,000 in year 1. Do I think a running back is worth that? No, not no freshman. No. But my thoughts on NIL and paying true freshmen are a lot different than a lot of people's because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's a bad investment, and the return on the investment isn't what you thought it was going to be. So I do think that Ohio State's team is full of talent, but you got to do better with the recruiting. I wasn't planning on doing the recruiting part on this show, but when I thought about Savion Hyder going to Michigan, and then when I considered Ohio State, I believe they only have 21 verbal commits right now, and they need to be closer to 25 or 26. Get a couple more offensive linemen, more D linemen, and things of that nature. It fits the conversation because it's needed to be talked about. Because Ohio State recruiting is not up to par, it's not up to the standard that it needs to be at, which adds to why the Buckeyes DB recruiting has been on point. The recruiting of other positions hasn't been. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the portal because my guy Brian Smith, he has the latest rumors portal entries and signings. He's also going to get you ready for the upcoming college football, not just season, the week 0 games that are just a couple days away. You can follow the portal and Locked on Buckeyes on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317 at gmail.com. This has Locked on Buckeyes on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.